What's going on? Welcome to today's video, and today I'll explain to you the 5-step close framework to stop problems from happening, not to close your team and stop messing up things that they repeatedly actually do, but to actually stop the thing from happening to close the loop. My name is DJ. If you don't know me yet, I've built a B2C business to 3.5 million cash collected in the last 3.5 years. Shut that down, and I now actually help B2B businesses to scale past 100 grand a month with DM appointment setters by installing the setter, making sure that we install the data funnels, and we train you on the leadership that is required for long-term longevity. So without further ado, let's get into this video and get into this 5-step framework. You've probably felt this before, where you're sitting down with your team and you're looking at what they actually produce, and you see mistake after mistake actually happening, and to your frustration, you're trying to deal with it and you're trying to bring it to their attention. And so you start with the solution in mind. This is what a lot of founders actually do. We address the problem, and then we immediately come with the solution like, hey, I think you should do it that way, or have you considered doing it this way, or have you checked this SOP where it says that you should do it in that specific way. And so usually we figure out that even if we do that, we see the mistake being repeated over and over and over again. And we may say things like, man, this team member just doesn't have common sense. Like, they just don't freaking get it. Like, how did they not have the emotional intelligence to comprehend on what I actually want them to solve? And the reason is because you're starting at step number 5 while you should start at step number 1 of the close framework. Again, not to close your people on solving the problem, but to close the loop of the problems that they are creating or repeating. And so number 1 is that you actually have to confront the team member or the team members that are producing this problem on a repetitive behavior. And I'm not trying to say confront as in the way of like, hey, you did this wrong, or you did that wrong, and why did you do that, or why did Johnny do this? But really in a way of like, hey, let's pause here for a second, guys. I'm going to bring something to your attention, and because I train people on DM teams, let's just say we have a DM conversation and we put that here in front of us. And so what I mean with that is like, hey, let's have a read through this exact conversation. I'm not going to tell you what I think it is wrong, but there's a reason of why I'm bringing this to your attention. And I want you to be able to recognize why I would even do that in the first place. And so the thing that we're looking for is if they even have situational awareness on why something is happening or why something isn't happening and why you're bringing something up. Because if somebody is not situational aware, then how can they label what the exact problem actually is? Why would they have an understanding on why that is a problem for you in the first place, or why it would have to be solved for the sake of the company in order to make more money, or to not do something that all costs us a lot of time and energy in relation to then solving it? Because that's step number 4 of this framework. And so you see that we're at step number 1 right now. Do you see what the problem is? And then number 2 of the framework is, do they actually recognize what the problem is then? So let's say we're having the conversation here in front of us, and we're looking for situational awareness. Like, do they at least grasp why there would be a reason of why we would bring this up? Then the second tier is, can we get specific on why we brought this up? Let's say we're looking at a conversation here, and the conversation says, the lead says like, hey, I think this is awesome, but I don't think I'm able to invest in this, or I don't want to invest in this based on my life circumstances. And what the setter did, or what this team member did in this case, is just move on with the conversation, qualify them further, and actually book it in for a call. Now, obviously, that's a problem, because what will happen is that you're going to get 5 or 10 of those calls, or maybe even more per month, based on that team member thinking that the closer is going to magically actually close it, or that something is going to happen that it would still actually lead to that person becoming a client, right? And so that's a recognition of the problem. Can they see that that specific line, why that lead said that it should have been addressed and solved there at that stage? And what comes beneath that then, after that, is the understanding of why. Why would we not want to have those calls on the calendar? Because it wastes the time of the closer. It wastes the time of the triager. It's wasting your time inside the inbox that you could spend with higher leverage on actually making more money for yourself, for the company, for the rest of the team as well, with the sake of the work that you're doing and what you're responsible for. So can you now see and understand the bigger mission and vision and the bigger picture of why we would bring this to your attention? Because in perfect clear picture, you've booked 5 to 10 of those calls in the last 2 weeks alone, and that's 5 to 10 hours wasted with a certain show rate based on what that closer actually spent there. The leads were just not qualified as what I got back from the feedback as the closer. So that's the understanding, that's the why, and they can now see it. And then we get to actually get to the solution. And this is, again, where most founders actually start. And the reason why team members don't understand this is because they don't have situational awareness. They can even label the problem, let alone understand why it is a problem in the first place. Some people would literally tell you without all of these things that, yeah, but you're bringing me a solution, but I figured that this was an awesome conversation. I think you did a great job. And you're like, what? And it's basically because you tend to think like this person doesn't have common sense, but like, what do they have common sense about? It's like you're trying to ask them to describe a room that they've never been in. If I just give you a quick analogy here, right? And so solution then is where you could come up with a solution yourself, but then you're still going to be the answer to be the solution the next time around something happens again as well. And so you also now have the opportunity and the obligation as a leader to train them on autonomy, to actually teach them how your brain works and why you think a solution is actually a good fit versus why a solution is not a good fit. I'll give you an example here. You could ask them like, hey, give me a solution, and they would come with one. They would just come up with one that is simple, easy to execute on, but doesn't per se solve it long term. And so this is why I say to my team, every single time you have a problem, give me 3 solutions. And I want you to think about which one could be the best fit as well and why you think that can actually be the best fit. And then in the best case, they give me one solution and they give me also the right solution on what they think could be the right fit. And they explain to me why. Now we have understanding on how we're going to solve that as well and why this was important so it doesn't happen again. But in the worst case scenario, I can actually educate them on how my brain works and why I think that those 3 solutions weren't a fit. Because you can try to explain something to somebody, but if they don't understand like why something is important to you in the first place, then I can guarantee you the next time the solutions will also be the same again to different problems because they don't get to understand your train of thought. And so that's number 4 of the closed framework. Then the last one is actually the execution of it. Because here's the saying, you hear something for the first time after 7 times. And so repetition here is the name of the game. Yes, the problems will probably stop happening, but the training and the awareness and the labeling of certain problems and also being able to get understanding of why things are happening, etc., is what will provide the autonomous players that you're all likely so hard looking for. You're trying to hope that you'll find this person on the first get-go of hiring somebody, but the reality is rarely is that the case. This is how you develop them. If you like this video, then please subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and I hope to see you in the next one.